Hello, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome. We're really proud to be launching the KSA Certified DPO qualification. This was a webinar that was delivered on the 14th of May. We didn't want to record that to make sure that people were able to ask questions in an anonymous way. This is a slightly updated versions because some really interesting questions came out of that webinar. So my name is Bilal Ghafoor. I'm a data protection practitioner, and let me kick off by telling you a little bit more about myself. I've been doing data privacy for 15 years, mostly in the UK, Europe, Far East, and for the last 3 years I've been concentrating on the GCC. So I'm the Managing Director of GCC Data Protection. We deliver privacy law compliance programs in 5 out of the 6 GCC countries, and I'm the author of the weekly KSA PDPL digest. I've quite a lot of experience in delivering training, including the UK Civil Service College DPAS, Understanding Modern Gov. And when we sat down to try to count, we kind of lost count, but I've very confidently trained at least 1,000 DPOs and data protection professionals. So I hold quite a lot of privacy qualifications. I hold the IAP-CP, the CIPM. I was also awarded a Fellow of Information Privacy, and I'm an ISO 27701 implementer, which is the add-on onto the ISO 27001. So there's a reason why we launched this particular qualification, because in the old days we used to join teams. We used to be relatively junior, so you may be a cybersecurity specialist, you may be working in IT and GRC, whatever it was. You know, we went to university, we maybe did 1 or 2 certificates, and then we joined a team as a junior person. And sitting within that team of 3, 4 people, 8, 10 people, there were always people with 10, 15 years experience, and they would teach us, they would mentor us. And that's where actually we did a lot of our professional development and our learning. And I was very, very lucky in the UK. I had some amazing bosses, and they really said, Bilal, don't do it like this. Please do it like that. Think about it in this way. So I learned so much from them. And that learning was absolutely critical because it explained to me how to put the theory into practice. Nowadays, when we think about the fact that the KSA PDPL is, about 20 months old, it's still very, very new. Not all organizations have DPOs, and there is a lack of DPOs, I think, in KSA. When we join an organization, often the DPO has to form a team. The DPO is the most senior person. There isn't automatically someone with 5, 10, 15 years worth of experience who can teach and mentor you to make sure that you become excellent. So what is available at the moment are maybe some online articles, the law, the Sadaya guidance, and the rest of it you kind of have to figure out and work your way through. So that's why we've designed this course to overcome this specific problem. So this is a completely new way to train. I mean, you can find 5 days of classroom-based learning anywhere. Lots and lots of providers do this. Some do it very badly, some do it very, very well. I think we're not the only people to do this well, but what we bring, I think, is something else. We also bring 6 months of assignments and one-to-one mentoring. And this is designed to replace that thing where you had an experienced boss who would give you mentoring, who would give you feedback on the kind of work you were doing and help you think through how to take the theory from the classroom and put it into practice. There's all the difference in the world between someone saying, this is the theory behind doing a privacy impact assessment, and then you sitting down and actually having to do one. One of the other things is that obviously data privacy is new, the DPO role is relatively new in the kingdom. So what often happens is that the DPO is not very well known, and they really have to work hard to kind of make sure that they build up their respect within their organization. That's why we think it's really important that a DPO should be able to speak well, so that when the head of marketing suddenly comes up to the DPO, when the CISO comes up to the DPO, or even a junior person, someone from a customer contact center comes to the DPO and says, "Hey, what do I do about this issue here?" The DPO should be able to speak confidently. They should be able to give advice in the right kind of way that is helpful and is authoritative. So one of the things that we do, and this is something that we will teach you all the way through, are those soft skills, how to explain, how to speak without jargon. But this is the final part of this qualification. We will have a one-to-one session, and we'll take you through some scenarios, and we will see how well you speak on this. And if you can do that, you've got 5 days of classroom learning, you've got assignments that you're going to be given, and we will really dive deep into them in our one-to-one mentoring sessions. If you can then learn to speak authoritatively, you become a very, very credible and rounded DPO. So obviously, you can go and look at our brochure, which is online, and I'll give you a link to that. The syllabus is kind of as you would expect. What do we cover? What is personal data? What are lawful bases of processing, international data transfers, data breaches, policies, procedures, privacy impact assessment, privacy by design, AI. So it's all that stuff that you would absolutely expect. Even at the classroom stage, we absolutely do teach you the jargon, because it is important that you understand how to read the law. But we don't just talk about theory. We talk about how to think about putting that theory into practice. So that is absolutely something that we concentrate on. And then one of the other bits that is incredibly important are the soft skills. So for example, recently, one of the people that I'm mentoring came to me and said, well, she had a conversation with a client party and their DPO and their lawyers, and they were insisting that her organization was a data controller, which they weren't. Now, you can kind of argue theory, and you'd be right to say, no, we're a data processor. But actually, there is a technique to explaining things to people and making sure that you put your point of view over and you help the other person understand. So this happens whether you're talking to other experts, and it definitely is very, very important when you are talking to non-experts in your organization. We also look at the DPO's calendar, and we do a very, very deep dive into the role of the DPO, so that when you come out of this at the other end, you will have a really, really good roadmap and idea as to what your year will look like. We will break it down by what you do on a daily basis, what you do on a monthly, weekly basis, and those kind of things that you look at once a year. So the classroom is 5 days long, and we appreciate that people can't just take 5 days off for learning. It's very, very difficult. So we've broken it down to 1 day a week. And so it will take 5 weeks to get through all of these 5 days. And this is live online. You can therefore do it from anywhere. So we were going to set this up in Riyadh, but we had so many people asking from Jeddah, from Dammam, from Al Khobar province, and in fact also people from the UAE who do a lot of business within the kingdom. So this will be live online, and you can do this from absolutely anywhere. The mentored assignments are, I think, something that has not really been introduced before. Here is just some examples of what we do. So these are real, actual pieces of work. So if we take, for example, the first one, suppliers. So if you are onboarding a supplier, let's imagine that your HR is buying a new software as a service to manage all staff. Now, security will look at that and will kind of say, yes, this we have enough encryption, we have the right access control, they're ISO 27001 compliant, and so they will check the security elements. The users will say, does this platform work and do what we want it to do? Procurement might look at it and say, is this value for money? Is this the right platform? But there are specific obligations within the PDPL. So the platform has to be compliant and has to enable you to comply. So when you do that, you have to undertake due diligence. You have to look through the whole system and assess, will this help us to be PDPL compliant or does it not? So one very, very good example is deletion of data. If the system does not allow you to delete data and set retention periods, then it is not likely to be compliant. Once you have assessed it and you think, yes, this system works and everyone else has signed off on it, then of course you will have to go into contracts and agreements. Now, what might the assignment be? Well, it might be a real piece of work. So during the course of your work, if you're onboarding a supplier, then we might sign an NDA with your employer because we would hope that they would support your training. And you can do a real live piece of work and in complete security and confidence bring it to us, and we will help you work out what your policy and guidance will be, and then we'll go through the due diligence and we'll help you, we'll challenge you, and we'll say, why didn't you think about it like this? Why didn't you do it? Why didn't you fill out the due diligence form like that? Why didn't you think it through? What do you think the risks here are? And again, because all of these are mentored one-to-one, you will absolutely get the kind of feedback that you need. And there's a similar process across all of these. So this, I think, is the real learning that comes out of a course like this. So all of these sessions that you'll have will be one-to-one. You'll get feedback on live pieces of work. If you're not currently a DPO or don't have these kinds of pieces of work, we'll give you something theoretical. I will literally say, look, we need to buy a software as a service platform. Here are 3 options. I want you to go off and risk assess them, and then I want you to figure out what we should do about the contract and the agreements. And we'll teach you all of this so that you can be 100% confident that you understand how to onboard a vendor. Now, what we're looking for here is not for you to be amazing and a genius from the start. You will make mistakes. That is part of learning. What we're looking for here is how you improve, how you learn, and how your understanding of putting theory into practice evolves. Now, the verbal exam is the bit I think that people get worried about the most. We will book this right at the end. This will be a one-to-one conversation, and this will be with one of the 2 trainers that I will introduce to you. Both of them are fellows of information privacy from the IAP. They're usually an hour. They're one-to-one, and they're conversations essentially. So I will give you up to 4 PDPL scenarios, and you must give advice as if you're talking to the CEO. So you're talking to somebody who is corporate, who perhaps is quite senior, but who is not a PDPL expert. And what we're testing here is your ability to communicate technical ideas. You have to be able to explain risk and find realistic solutions, but the conversation needs to be jargon free so that the other person can genuinely understand what it is that you're trying to explain. So finding that realistic solution, and again, as I say, we will teach you how to do all of these things so that you can confidently give advice to people. So looking at the marking scheme, 20% of this is on the classroom learning. Now, this is not about whether you know the answer. This is about your participation, your ability to ask questions. Because frankly, one of the best questions that we ever hear in any training session is, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that bit. Can you explain that more? If you're in that position, probably other people are as well, and we love that kind of question. So we're keeping the groups really, really small. We want to limit them to 6 to 8 people, just to make sure that everyone gets the kind of individual attention that they need. Assignments are 60%. So this is about how you learn, your attitude, your improvement, and how you evolve and improve and become better. Again, it is not about being perfect from the start. It's a mentoring session. And then the verbal exam at the end is 20%. Can you understand the problem? Can you give technical advice without jargon? Can you speak the corporate language of risk and options? And can you conclude the question with clear next steps? Now, a few FAQs. How long will the whole thing take? Well, 5 weeks for the classroom, 3 to 6 months for the assignments. It depends on how quickly you can do them, and 1 day for the verbal exam. Who is teaching it? Well, there are two trainers. I will be teaching most of this. We've already had a look at my qualifications. I have 15 years experience. Laura is my senior consultant. She has the AI GP and will be teaching some of the more AI driven elements of this. She has 5 years of experience, but for example, she has written an authoritative white paper on AI in the kingdom, which has been very, very widely read and received. So she is an amazing person. The cost of this is, if you just do the 5 days classroom training, it's just under 5,000 Rial. The CDPO qualification, so that's the 5 days, the 6 mentoring assignments, and the verbal exam is just under 10,000. What happens afterwards, once you complete it, obviously you get a badge and a certificate, and you can add that you are a KSA DPO, and you'll get access to an exclusive community of DPOs for peer support. I will be in this, Laura will be in this, so we can all give each other advice, and I will be helping people with their continuous professional development. We are, because this is the first time we're running this, we're offering some discounts. 20% is possible as an introductory offer for all. But if you're unwaged or a student, please also talk to me. We definitely want to support as many learners as we can, and we don't want anyone to not be able to access learning because of cost. Now, one of the really interesting questions that came out of the webinar when we ran it was, should I do the CIP-E or should I do the KSA CDPO qualification? Well, the CIP-E, without a doubt, is from IAP. It's internationally recognized. But what there is to note is that the GDPR and the KSA PDPL have an 80 to 85% overlap. And therefore we feel, particularly because our certification is much, much cheaper than the CIP. The CIP training courses are typically around $2,000 and often much more than that. Their exams are then another $600, and then you add on the membership fees of another $200 or $300. So you could expect to pay around $3,000, maybe around 12,000 Rial at least to sit that exam and to get everything done. Because of the overlap, if you are working predominantly in KSA, it is likely very, very good for you to do the KSA CDPO, and then later in your career to do a little bit of self-study, which you can do with a textbook, and then to take the CIP-E just by paying the exam fee. So that's probably a very, very good course. But if your work is more international and you don't need to know about the KSA CDPO and the KSA PDPL so much, then we have recommended to some people that no, we think this course is not as good for you. You should actually go off and do the CIP-E. So just to reiterate that our certification obviously is cheaper than the CIP-E. For more information, you can always reach out to me on WhatsApp. You can email me, and if you go onto our website and click training courses, you can access the brochure which breaks down the entire syllabus. So please do get in touch. Our first cohort starts in June, a few days after Eid. Do get in touch. And again, if payment is an issue, talk to us, because what we really want to do is teach. We want people to learn. We don't want people to be excluded. Take care. Inshallah, speak to you soon.